Hey, guess what I made? A Patreon! You have to be a patron gets you access to all kinds of rewards, including early access to videos, a personal thank you video, voting power for what I do next, and your name in the credits. I'm trying really hard to make this a community that you guys like, so if you feel like signing up, please do so. The link is down in the description. There's different levels of rewards for different tiers of payment, so yeah, please consider signing up to be a patron. Alright guys, after rewatching Fiji for the first time in a few years, I have come to one unmistakable conclusion about Dalton Ross's opinions on Survivor. Dalton Ross vehemently hates mediocre, lifeless, toneless seasons more so than anything else, especially if they're mean-spirited in addition to that. His bottom 3 seasons, Thailand, Fiji, and Nicaragua, all have that in common. He doesn't hate a season if it's boring, as long as there's some sort of consistent storyline like Redemption Island or Ghost Island. Seem to hate a season if it's aggressively mean-spirited like South Pacific or Worlds Apart. All these things are problems in his mind, but it's fascinating to me what we prioritize when we decide what's a good or bad season of Survivor. Some people prioritize fair gameplays. They would probably rank seasons like Triple H or EOE at the very bottom. Some people like fair editing, so they rank seasons like Ghost Island or South Pacific at the very bottom. Some don't like obnoxious, predictable winners, so they would rank Redemption Island, One World, or, again, Ghost Island at the very bottom. It's also worth noting that despite our tendencies to act like we have such differing opinions, we all tend to have the same 10 seasons in our bottom 10. Usually just some variations of Thailand, Nicaragua, Redemption Island, South Pacific, One World, Triple H, Ghost Island, Worlds Apart, and some variation of Fiji, Karamoan, or Game Changers. This fan ranking to me just proves that beyond a doubt, because those were our bottom 10, minus Ghost Island, because, you know, that wasn't out yet when this ranking was being made. But those are generally agreed to be the 11 worst collective seasons by the Survivor fandom by and large. These are like the 11 seasons that everyone just does not like, period. So that leaves the million-dollar question. What are my priorities? I don't like it when a season is both mean-spirited and lacking of any real storyline. I have Thailand, Nicaragua, and Ghost Island all in my bottom 3 because of that. Fiji would fall into that because a couple of the contestants are really unlikable and it has no real consistent storyline. Instead it has a bunch of disparate storylines throughout the season that at least I'll get closure. Even though I don't particularly love it, I do hold it in higher regards than those other 3. Because it is an entirely different beast than any other season I've covered so far. At times, specifically the Alex Taboo votes, it's dreadfully boring, but at times it's actively infuriating because of that stupidly haves versus have-nots twist. Other times it's deeply compelling, like the Dreams Yowman truck deal gone bad. And at times it's actively hilarious, like every physical comedy bit that involves Lisi, or the fall of the 4 horsemen, which is like one of my favorite things in Survivor history. Fiji breaks that little theory I utilized because it's not just one thing. It's complex and messy. Not to mention the meta sense of it being one of the most influential seasons to modern Survivor as it is today. Yeah, you heard that right. There's just too many things working, there's too many working parts in Fiji for me to consider it irredeemably bad. Let's start with that modern Survivor thing, because I truly believe this season is more integral to Survivor becoming what it is than even Micronesia maybe. Solely because this is the first season where the hidden immunity idol is introduced as it is in its current format. The format that would last to this very day. Idol is played, an idol is rehidden, and you have to play it before the votes are read. That, to me, is just extremely interesting and impossible to overlook. Here's this season, a sort of boring, uncomfortable, lackluster season made up of uncharismatic recruits that's somehow smack dab right in the middle of Survivor's golden age. Trainwreck somehow ends up being one of the most influential seasons of all time. Possibly the most influential season, at least until Triple H, or hell, maybe even Samoa, but even then, Samoa didn't change the rules as drastically as Fiji did here. Let me put it this way. Without this season, without Fiji, Russell is nothing. He's just an abrasive player that gets on everybody's nerves. Not the idol king he is now. The closest season that comes to upending Survivor as we know it was Cook Islands, which, introduced the Final 3 format, which is arguably just as, if not more important than the hidden immunity idol. But I'd argue it's not, because the Final 3, that's seen some changes throughout the years. Sometimes it has been a Final 2, and I don't know, the final 3 just to me doesn't seem as drastic as the hidden immunity idol. The final 3 is just adding one more person to Final Tribal. It's not completely changing the game as we know it. And this is where that started. Panama and Cook Islands, as good as they are at best just the uncomfortable transition period when it comes to the Survivor rulebook. Fiji is the one that really got it started. Cook Islands is great, and Panama and Cook Islands are both way better seasons than Fiji, but in terms of the evolution of Survivor, Fiji is way more important than those two. It was Fiji that started the trend of idols always being a major story element outside of the one-note story beat that was, well, we can't get Terry and Yule out because they have the magic stick. Idols play a huge part in almost every major storyline this season. Earl and Yaoman's friendship is made stronger because Earl helps Yaoman find the idol. The Four Horsemen story is almost entirely set around their idol, and the first usage of an opposing alliance going after the unexpected target to circumvent an idol. The first time someone gets idled out, everything, every story arc that's ever had to do with idols pretty much starts right here. And it does all of this while sucking. For the most part. Like I said, there's some non-meta aspects about the season that are actually good and are worth talking about. Let's move on from the idols. Let's start talking about the season proper. This season is possibly the most notable, again, besides the idol thing, for its abysmal haves versus have-nots twist. This twist goes like so. Both tribes land on the same beach on day 1 and are given ample supplies in which to build a Survivor paradise, the likes of which Survivor has never known. There's beds, a hammock, coffee, a toilet, a proper seating arrangement, and both tribes help build the nice camp based on the goddamn blueprint that Survivor gave them. Even being facetious, they gave them a literal blueprint on how to make Survivor fun and cushy and easy.
Sylvia.
Anyway, technically, the 2 tribes have not actually been decided yet. On day 3, they make the 2 tribes themselves via a schoolyard pick. Because there's an unequal amount of contestants, one contestant gets sent to Exile Island, where they will wait until one tribe votes someone out. That person will then essentially take the place of the first person voted out. And here's the rub. Whoever wins that challenge not only gets to not go to tribal council, but they get to live on the luxurious beach where they will actually gain weight while the other tribe is sent to a barren island with virtually no resources, forced to defend for themselves. So basically, one tribe is living in luxury, and the other tribe gets to suck water from palm leaves to stay hydrated. Yikes. I can't even begin to explain how poorly conceived this twist is from every level. There's absolutely nothing good about this twist in the slightest. It's grossly unfair, it goes against the very nature of the survival aspect of the show, and worst of all, it's just boring. I guess they were trying to replicate the oolong situation from Palau, but that was engaging because it just happened naturally. The 2 tribes were on equal footing, and oolong just happened to lose every challenge again and again and again and again. Here, Moto just wins again and again and again because, well, of course they will. They're the ones eating well and sleeping well and having a nice luxurious life, while Roto, again, is sucking water from palm leaves. This is so unevenly matched, and it becomes a vicious cycle, because the more food Moto eats, the more challenges they win, and that includes reward challenges, which also have food. So, the more challenges they win, the more food they eat, the more challenges they win, and so on and so forth. During the entire pre-merge, Roto wins exactly 1 challenge and avoid exactly 1 tribal council. The rest of the time, Moto just keeps winning everything. And for like the first 3 episodes, I guess it's sort of compelling in that you just feel so sorry for them kind of way. But after a while, it just gets so dull and boring and kind of depressing. I just feel so bad for them, and it's not even like it's their fault, basically. They were just forced to live on this island while the other tribe gets to live better than some of them are living in their real life. It was a stupid idea for a twist that I can't ever believe it went through the approval process, and I'm so glad it never happened again. Let me put it to you this way. I think the only twist worse than this was the Final 4 fire-making twist, and only by virtue of Final 4 being a permanent change, and this was just a one-off thing that they thankfully never did again. Along with the pre-merge alternating between being depressing/boring, the actual contestants voted out in the pre-merge are some of the most forgettable people who have ever played this game. I just finished watching this season, and I could give you names, maybe, but I'd have a hard time actually matching those names to faces. I'm completely uninvested with the fates of any of these nobodies. And you know what? That extends to more than just the pre-merger. Almost all of this cast is just so bland. Apparently Gary was the only applicant in this cast, which just goes to show why this cast seems so particularly inept. The other seasons coming close to this level of diversity are the season that just finished, Island of the Idols, and now the best season of the three by default, Cook Islands. Interestingly, Cook Islands was just as diverse as this season, but as far as I know, had more than one applicant. It seems to me that the suckiness of this cast, and the fact that all of the actual voted out contestants had never seen the show before, have a lot to do with each other. It's worth noting that after 2 seasons in a row with diverse casts, China went right back to casting 4 people of color in a season with a predominantly white cast. Yep, just, I don't know, cast James, Sharia, Frosty, and Fiji. There, that's our quota. Yay. Honestly, I think the way the show went about all of this is really sad. First, they decided their very first season with a diverse cast should have the tribes divided by race. Like doing the bare fucking minimum of casting more than 2 non-white people on the cast is such a rare and wondrous thing that it deserves its own theme. Secondly, it's heavily theorized that if Melissa had not stepped down literally days before filming, the 20 contestants would have been split up by race again. The only thing keeping them from just having a regularly diverse cast with no divisions built on them. That's just how it is. The only thing keeping that from happening was Melissa stepping down a few days before. Again, theorized. We don't know for sure, but it seems pretty likely. Good God, do you have any social awareness at all? Melissa stepping down is the only reason you didn't do this done twice in a row? Jesus. Thirdly, after the cast was about as dynamic as a wet paper bag, I guess the lesson CBS took from it is that never make a diverse cast again. The show is better when it's predominantly white. I think having the first 12 casts the show ever created be predominantly white, having only 2 POC winners in the 6 years the show had been on the air at that point, led to an environment where maybe less people of color watched Survivor, perhaps, because they weren't feeling represented, or at the very least, less people of color auditioned for Survivor because, again, maybe they felt that Survivor wasn't a safe or welcoming environment for them, which led to, if you wanted to make a diverse cast, you had to go out and get mostly recruits, and I think that might have led to the cast being terrible and the season suffering because of it. Now, that's a very simplified, dumbed-down YouTube version of it. It's much more nuanced and complicated than all of that, and who knows, maybe I could be getting completely wrong. This is just based on my own possible theories as to what happened. That seems to me like maybe a logical course of events. Because let's look at this cast a little closer. Who are the most diverse members of the season and the only things that make this season any worth watching? Earl, Dreams, and Yowman. Interesting. I don't mean to keep harping on the race element, but it's a relevant factor when discussing this season. The cast, when it came to the actual gameplay and just sheer charisma, was one of the worst casts the show ever put together. But when viewed completely divorced from the source material, this is among the top 3 best casts the show has ever put together. You know why? Because if Survivor is supposed to be a microcosm of American society, then it should reflect that by having a diverse cast. Not because of any political agenda that doesn't exist, but because it makes for more interesting stories and allows all groups of people to see themselves represented. Who is the best character of the season? The undecided, best, most fleshed out, most entertaining, compelling character of this entire cast. Like Jeff Probst said at the reunion, everything good about this season eventually comes back to Dreams. He's the catalyst for the fall of the 4 horsemen, the car deal gone bad. Everything comes back to him. Arguably, this isn't the story of how Earl won, it's the story of how Dreams lost. But like Coach, it's not done with the framing device that they were robbed per se. We understand perfectly Dreams' journey and why it ends with such a crushing defeat. Coming into this game, Dreams came from a really rough background. His mom was a drug addict, and he's the first castaway ever, to my knowledge at least, who used to be homeless. He's unlike any contestant who ever got onto the show. His life and his worldview is completely alien from the average Survivor viewer. Coming from extreme poverty, he saw this as an opportunity to improve his life situation and that of his family. This was almost life and death for him. Keep in mind, he wasn't even 25 at the time of filming. Meeting all these people and having all these new life experiences, he was like a literal kid in a candy store. He was not a Survivor fan. I doubt he even knew what Survivor was. He was just so overwhelmed being thrust into this environment. For him, the challenging elements was not the hunger or the sleeping conditions, it was the new social and strategic maneuverings he found himself in.
I started getting these friends, all these new friends, which really flustered my mind. I was just happy to be around people.
Okay.
So
was just happy to be around people? Oh my god, that is just heartbreaking. This is probably the most social interaction he's had in a long time. Like, this isn't just a run-of-the-mill poor. This is living on soup kitchens, doesn't even have a car kind of poor. I feel sorry for him and am just engrossed in his story the entire time because there's no way I could relate to that. He's not a clean strategist, he's not elegant, he's not concise, he's seemingly no forethought when it comes to strengthening his position in the game. He makes emotional decisions based on whom he likes or doesn't like. First, he joins the Four Horsemen because they're the first people to treat him like a human being in this game. And then when he finds out they didn't tell him about the hidden immunity idol, he proceeds to blow up their entire operation. It's not like he does it because he's worried about his position in the alliance, at least that's not what it seems to be. Instead, it's more like he's just upset that they lied to him on a human level. He tells Earl and Yao-Men and their entire group about the whereabouts of the hidden immunity idol, and that leads to the fall of the Four Horsemen. Then, this is where it gets really good. Okay, well, actually, it was already really good during the fall of the Four Horsemen, if only because of this gif. Move over, Maddie and Gabon. This is the best gift that the Survivor gods have ever bestowed upon us. Look at it. The entire story. All you need to know about this moment, this entire story arc really, is told to you through those few seconds. It is just so brilliant. This is one of my favorite episodes of Survivor, which is strange because it comes from such a bad season, but there's not much I can really say about it besides, well, it's just really great. Look at it. It's like comedy 101. It's so brilliant. I just wanted to get that in there because I just love this episode so darn much. Anyway, later on in the season, right before the end basically, Yao-Men wins the car. Yep, you already know. This is what people think about when they think about Survivor Fiji. The defining moment of the season. The reason I remember the exact final four, besides Yao-Men just being super memorable. Talking about this moment, I have to sidetrack a little bit because this thought is literally just forming now. While rewatching this season, I was really very unimpressed by it. There's just so many forgettable people, and not just the pre-mergers, but the end gamers as well. Boo, Alex, Stacy, I could not care less about them. Their eliminations meant so little to me and evoked so little emotion that I was ready to write this season off as worse than Worlds Apart, South Pacific, and One World. Not even the car deal could save it in my eyes. But now, upon revisiting it, really think deeply about that moment. It's just too ironic and tragic and hilarious for me to not love this season just a little bit. This is like the perfect culmination of the car curse. If there's any argument to be made as to why China is the real start of the modern era and not Fiji, it's because Fiji has the car curse. A very solidly old school Survivor thing to have. And oh, what a glorious car curse to end on. See, again, that's that meta element. I'm slowly realizing that all of the things to love about Fiji are the meta things. The car curse refers to a long-standing tradition where the winner of the car curse always failed to win the season at hand. This is its last season, and it's the perfect encapsulation of the car curse, because neither of these men involved in the fiasco won the game. But the meta-ness isn't why it's so infamously remembered. Okay, so Yao Men wins the car, and since it's already been brought to everyone's attention that Dreams desperately needs a car in his real life, Yao Men immediately starts using the car as a bargaining chip. He tells Dreams that he will give him the car if, in the event that they are both in the final four, should Dreams win immunity, he will bequeath the immunity necklace to Yao Man. Dreams accepts the bargain, and thus the story begins. Dreams first shows cold feet about the deal when he tries to eliminate Yao Men at the final 6. He enlists Cassandra, Stacy, and Boo to help him, and would have done so successfully had Yao Man not played his idol. Really should have clued Yao Man in that Dreams would not keep his end of the bargain at the very end. In fact, I believe had Yao Man and Earl voted off Dreams, Yao Man would be $1 million richer. Unless Boo wins Final Four immunity, in which case it's entirely likely that Yao Man gets voted out anyway, but regardless. Yao Man assures that Dreams will keep his word, and wouldn't you know it, Dreams wins immunity. They learn, however, because Cook Islands hadn't come out yet at the time of filming, that the final Tribal Council will be a final 3, and that whoever wins this immunity challenge will automatically be guaranteed a spot in front of the jury to make their case as to why they deserve to win the title of sole survivor and the $1 million that goes along with it. Basically, when making the deal, Dreams had no idea that the necklace he promised to give Yao Man was the one thing keeping him from potentially $1 million. And all of a sudden, he's conflicted. And it's this moment that Dreams becomes hated by both the fan base and the jury. The jury questioning is noticeably more aggressive and harsh than they usually are, and that's saying something. Boo, Lisi, and Alex are all absolutely livid with him. Gardo and Mookie, too, for breaking up the 4 horsemen. They're also angry at Cassandra, which I never understood. What did she do? She didn't do anything. Why are you all getting so mad at her? Dreams walks away with no jury votes to his name. Wow. What a compelling story. As I said earlier, Dreams is one of the most fascinating and interesting characters the show has, okay, maybe not ever had, but he's certainly up there. He's definitely unlike any character the show has ever had. Dreams is the best character, or one of the best characters on just a basic human level, because he has a great human story. Dreams single-handedly, specifically this whole tragic saga of the car, makes Fiji so much better than it would be without it. Earl's a great winner, who in another review would have been talked about maybe even for a smidgen for performing one of the most dominant, clean games a winner has ever performed, and for the first person who ever got a unanimous jury vote. But, unlike Thailand, One World, and Redemption Island, the winner isn't really the main character of the season. The loser is. Dreams is. He is the most interesting and compelling character to talk about. It's the story of why Dreams lost. Do I think Dreams deserved the hate? Honestly, no. Again, you have to remember where Dreams was coming from. He was completely out of his element here and in desperate need of both the money and the car. Here's the thing. I truly believe Dreams was not playing Yao Men when he made the deal. I believe he really, really needed that car, and even though it was short-sighted of him, he didn't realize that giving up the necklace would be as hard as it ultimately ended up being. Yao Men himself told Dreams that he shouldn't have any hard feelings and he should just enjoy the car. Which he didn't, by the way. Enjoy the car, I mean. He didn't get to keep it. Season finales of even-numbered seasons don't air until May, which means the contestants don't get their winnings until after tax season has already passed. Which means that Dreams didn't even get to keep the car. At the end of the day, who was really hurt by this? Well, I guess Yao Man. Yeah, I mean, had Dreams kept his end of the bargain, Yao Man would probably be $1 million richer. But I find it hard to fault Dreams for making the choice that, let's be honest, anyone would have made in his situation. And it's not like Dreams got rewarded for being a snake anyway. He doesn't have a car, he's not a millionaire, and he's not a winner. So, over 3,000 words later, what's the verdict? This season alternates from being compelling to mean-spirited to boring, all at the drop of a hat. It almost feels like 3 completely distinct stories. Like Thailand, it's a bit disjointed, and as a result, this review is kind of a bit disjointed because there's really only 3 things to talk about with this season. There's the first part, which is the inherent unfair nature of the twist. There's the fall of the 4 horsemen, which really there's nothing much to talk about except, wow, that was pretty funny. And 3, the Dreams Yao Man situation gone bad. I think it's better than Thailand, but the result of all its stories are super interesting and kind of finish, whereas Thailand doesn't really have a story besides Brian just being a jerk. I can't say it's a particularly fun season to watch, but it's an amazingly fun season to talk about, which is more than I can say about a lot of the seasons we've discussed. In my mind, this is the end of the truly terrible seasons. From here on out, I unequivocally like or love every season coming up. Unless, of course, I finally remake that South Pacific review, and actually finish it, which I probably should. You know what, I've watched 9 bad seasons in a row, even if most of them did have a redeeming quality here or there. I think I'm going to reward myself with the Cochrane season that I actually like.